Everyone has a big opinion on DeepSeek right now, and it's for a good reason.
A new Chinese artificial intelligence tool is raising concerns from Silicon Valley to Wall Street this morning. It's called DeepSeek, and yesterday it became the most downloaded free app in the U.S. on Apple's App Store.
When a side project out of an $8 billion Chinese hedge fund wiped $600 billion off Nvidia's value in a single day, the size of Oracle for comparison, as well as the largest single stock decline ever, people do tend to notice. But this is not just a story about tech stocks. I think DeepSeek is actually kind of a distraction. It's about deeper questions that the US has to confront about innovation, talent, and progress. So hi, I'm Kyla, welcome to the channel. If you want to hit like, subscribe, share with a friend, that always helps. I want to talk about 5 key questions that DeepSeek is asking us to answer, and it's more about the state of the United States than the state of the AI industry, but everything is kind of one and the same. The US has some broader systemic challenges going on. For example, the White House suspended all federal grants and loans, calling efforts towards sustainability, social engineering, and this means that people are not going to get paid, that they're not going to be able to get the food that they need. It is a total constitutional crisis. Hi, it's Kyla from a bit later in the day. We have received an update from the White House on exactly what they meant with pausing federal spending, and they point out that it is not a freeze on things like SNAP and student loans. It's not a freeze on all federal financial assistance. Instead, it's meant to align federal spending with Trump's executive orders. And so this is all going to take some time to play out, but this is not good. From the perspective of so many people are relying on this stuff, and it is a blatant power grab. So this video kind of talks about that, right? Like, what does it mean to be successful in the United States? And it's probably not messing with the budget in a way that could harm millions of people. That story is unfolding, and I'll probably post about it on my other socials, on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts, explaining what's going on there later today. Trump also announced the US will be placing tariffs on all semiconductors and pharmaceuticals imported from Taiwan, which does not bode well for Taiwan.
Particularly in the very near future, we're going to be placing tariffs on foreign production of computer chips, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals to return production of these essential goods to the United States of America.
Trump has also threatened tariffs on Colombia and Mexico and Canada, pushing more potential allies toward China. We also have the bird flu floating around that's already killed almost 4 million chickens, but our agencies can't communicate that to us due to an executive order, which is categorically not good. And so with all that as the background, in my opinion, the DeepSeek story is not about Chinese competition or AI breakthroughs. It's about how America is in a cold war with itself. The real trade isn't a sell-off in Nvidia, it's a sell-off in American exceptionalism. This is about more than just AI, it's about a reflection of America's internal struggles. So what is DeepSeek anyway? It's basically a side project out of an $8 billion Chinese hedge fund. They released their paper a few weeks ago, but the chatbot just hit the market recently, which is why everybody is suddenly talking about it. People like to see actual applications. And here's what makes them different. Their CEO isn't trying to monetize everything immediately or build out fancy applications. They just want to pursue AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, when the machines are basically humans. They built an AI system that matches or beats the best American models. Instead of spending billions like US companies, they did it for just $6 million. And then they did something even more remarkable. They gave it all away, releasing their approach as open source, challenging all other AI companies to do the same. While we're suspending funding at the government level for social engineering, they're doing actual engineering. And of course, you can't have this innovation without global cooperation or just global knowledge share. So that's important too. But the spending matters. Meta just announced they're spending $65 billion on AI this year, more than NASA's entire annual budget.
How important is it going to be where they spend the $65 billion?
Well, we know everyone wants to build the biggest compute cluster. I mean, Elon Musk built a 100,000 GPU cluster. Now everyone is talking about a 1 million GPU cluster.
Microsoft is spending $80 billion on his year.
Look, all I know is I'm good for my 80 billion. I'm going to spend $80 billion building out Azure.
And all of them need thousands of specialized chips, each costing $40,000 or so, just to keep the AI models running. We also have that huge Stargate project for $500 billion over the next couple of years between OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank to build out AI data centers. Meanwhile, DeepSeek did their thing for $6 million. How'd they do it? Apparently, they had to get creative because there were export restrictions on American chips to China, and as anyone who has ever tried to get something down from a very tall shelf knows, resource constraints fuel creativity. The sanctions from the US were a rallying force to get behind, and the American companies had to spend all this money in order for a model this cheap to be produced. And now it's really important because, like, you can do it this cheap, potentially. We don't have to keep on spending the same amount that we were. So this brings us to our first question. How do we actually create innovation? The numbers coming out of Silicon Valley are clearly mind-boggling and require a lot of narrative to keep them going. DeepSeek proved that you don't have to just spend a lot of money, you can just be efficient. And there's all sorts of speculation about how they managed this, including borrowing or stealing from American companies, which is probably true, even though, the American companies stole from the internet, so it's all the same at the end. And here's a simple way to think about the efficiency of the DeepSeek model. Instead of running massive models that keep all 1.8 trillion parameters active at all times, they built what's called an expert system. So imagine your house. The traditional approach is like leaving every appliance running 24/7. The TV, the dishwasher, the washing machine, everything. That's the traditional AI model. DeepSeek's approach is to only turn the lights on when needed. Their system has just 37 billion parameters active at once, with different experts waking up when necessary. They process whole phrases at once instead of word by word, and the total cost is therefore much lower because they're much more efficient. And this efficiency isn't great for the valuation of AI companies. It gets harder and harder to move the needle when the models become more and more advanced, and money doesn't solve this problem, creativity does. The AIs can start to learn on their own now through reinforcement learning, where they can adjust by trying things themselves instead of reading manuals, and this all creates a great opportunity for chips and data companies. But this efficiency isn't just about cost, it's also about a reduction in power needs, a reduction in data centers, a reduction in chips. It's about so much more than what it costs to train the models. American tech companies are building massive data centers that strain our power grids and our water supplies, like Karen Howe talked about. It also gives Silicon Valley immense control over critical energy and water infrastructure, and what DeepSeek has proven is that it's not about sucking the earth dry, it's about being better. China isn't just creating pretty good AI, they're doing a lot around physical infrastructure too. And like, huge caveat, they're not perfect. They're not. No one will say that they are, but there's of course lessons to learn here. China has announced a $137 billion action plan in AI-driven robotics, biomanufacturing, and advanced materials, not just generative AI, but making robots that can run marathons, etc. But they're doing so many other things. China's solar and wind power installations have soared to record highs, and we're fighting the dumbest of all culture wars about that. And they have amazing fighter aircraft, a new high-speed train, the world's longest sustained fusion reaction, and Chinese satellites have beat Elon Musk's Starlink. There's also other AI innovations coming out of China, like Alibaba's Quinn and Kimi K1.5. Nobody does the race to the price bottom like China, as somebody on Twitter said. America has approached innovation very differently. We've built an entire system around the idea that progress requires massive capital investment. They're showing that technological progress doesn't have to mean endless consumption. America has approached innovation very differently over the past couple of years. We've built an entire system around the idea that progress requires massive capital investment, which brings us to our second question. Have we built our entire tech industry on a false assumption? The market reaction tells an important story. A bunch of billionaires lost billions of dollars, total tech wealth erased was $108 billion, and Nvidia got completely torched because of all sorts of speculation. And this is important because what comes up with narrative-driven exuberance must come down. We've confused stock prices with actual progress. We measure success by dollars spent rather than problems solved. Even our retirement savings depend on this approach, and it's why the market reaction was so severe. It's just challenging those basic assumptions where it's like, oh, is spending a ton of money the right answer? Is buying up a bunch of technology the right answer? What if we did more with less? And there's a bunch of reasons that Nvidia shouldn't be selling off in the way that they are. Like, we still need GPUs. And it's about an ecosystem too, and that is still going to have to be built in the US. It's not the best example, but Instagram and TikTok are two apps that do essentially the exact same thing, and there's room for both of them. And I think you can think about AI models in the same way. And everyone's talking about Jevons paradox too, where it's this idea that, yes, the thing is more efficient, but because it's cheap, everyone consumes a lot more of it, which works in theory, especially with energy. People who use AI will be the winners here, but the bar is likely out on which companies will be the winners from Jevons paradox, and it's probably the data companies. If something is free to use and people are using a lot of it, that's not a profitable business model. Maybe for maintenance. And then another point here is like investors need to chill out. I am so sick of the S&P 500 and I can make a whole other video on this. And I like respect the drama that was created yesterday, you know, $1 trillion plus sold off from the market, but then you have all these buy orders on Nvidia. And I'm just so annoyed with the structure of the stock market. Investors complain that companies are allocating too much to research and development, and then they reward companies that fire people. And there is value in research and development and not fleecing consumers for every single nickel. And the reason that investors are so finicky is because the S&P 500 is essentially reliant on Nvidia. All the companies have earnings over the next 2 weeks, so we'll get an idea of how they are thinking, the companies are thinking about this news from DeepSeek. But the investors need to chill out. And of course, like all of this is gonna blow over, as most things do. And it might turn out that AI might just be a cheap thing to run and not very profitable, as Josh pointed out. There's also LLM commoditization happening, where this is a commodity that people are just going to consume. And again, it might not be a profitable business model. As Matt Levine described it, the ideal AI is like a magic lamp in their pocket with a genie that can grant unlimited wishes. The lamp is cheap and each wish is free. And the market sell-off wasn't just reacting to DeepSeek's success. It's questioning our entire approach to innovation. And that's the deeper question here. What if spending billions isn't the right way to do it? What if we've been confusing capital expenditure with actual innovation? And so this brings us to our third question: is our entire economy just built around financial engineering? In America, the S&P 500 isn't just a stock index, it's become our de facto national religion. It's how we fund retirements, it's how we pay for college, and it measures our national success. Every 401k, every pension plan, every college savings account depends on these numbers going up forever. That's a huge amount of pressure, especially for a company like Nvidia, who is like the entire stock market. But look at what we've rewarded. Investors, as I said, they complain about research and development. They complain about innovation. They're like, just cut costs, just cut labor, just cut, and figure it out along the way. And that's no way to run a country. Private equity has been buying up fire trucks, and they're not allowing people to buy the fire trucks unless they pay like exorbitant fees. This is a model that's not working for everybody, and it benefits the short term at the expense of the long term. The parasites are festering, and financial engineering is benefiting from that at the expense of like literally everything. And this brings us to the fourth question. As part of the problem, how we reward talent. America has historically been extraordinary at technology, and for good reason. We built the culture that attracted the world's brightest minds, but look at what's happening now. We're restricting H-1B visas while claiming talent shortages and making it impossible for high-skilled immigration to happen. The Economic Innovation Group has a great paper on this that I'll link in the description box below. Our best minds chase crypto fortunes, and for good reason. It's profitable. Like, if you can have Dogecoin go to the moon, Trump coin go to the solar system, of course you're gonna play that game. Like, this is just an incentives thing. Joe Weisenthal pointed it out, and it's kind of like a Dutch disease. Easy money from one sector, in our case finance, is draining talent from everything else. And this brings us to the final, and I think the most important question, is who gets to decide what happens next? I fell back a little bit on this, but I think it's absurd that we have people being like, wages are gonna go to zero, and also everything will be free. Enjoy. And then we have Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, being like, there are going to be massive changes to the social contract. Ooh.
I still expect that there will be some change required to the social contract, given how powerful we expect this technology to be. The whole structure of society itself will, be up for some degree of debate and reconfiguration.
It's like, are you gonna pay a tax on that? Like, are you gonna fund these massive changes to the social contract. Like, if you are proposing that society completely changes beneath your feet, you have to support society, and that gets into socialism, and we all know how that conversation goes. To say that there's going to be a consumer cornucopia, that everything is just for pennies, is a fundamental misunderstanding of economics, and it's also a fundamental misunderstanding of the current incentive model in the technology sector. And they know that. And I'm not like some conspiracy big brain person. Like, I think these people are important to the industry, obviously. They've done very good work, obviously. But if you're going to dip your toe into societal restructuring, you have to think of the people. And I'm very, very concerned about that. Because when you ask the question, well, who currently benefits from our current approach? We're prioritizing market value over real innovation, and we're not creating better technology. We're not creating stronger infrastructure. We're not creating more sustainable systems. We're not creating broader access. Who are we doing this for at the end of the day? And what are we doing with it? And if it is going to completely change the social fabric, who's paying for it? So the DeepSeek moment, in my opinion, isn't just about AI, it's not just about US versus China, it's about these broader questions that the US is going to really have to grapple with as a late-stage empire. I believe in the United States, I love the United States, but we have some real problems. We have to ask how we create innovation. We have to ask, have we built our economy on false assumptions? We have to ask, are we rewarding the right talent? These questions, more than the technical details of AI, will shape our future. Because the entire AI business model, built on massive spending and proprietary technology, might be wrong. We might have been confusing spending with innovation. The choice facing America isn't about competing with China, it's about competing with our own assumptions. It's that Cold War in the US thing that I've kind of talked about for the past couple of videos. We are fighting a battle with ourselves. We need to get out of our own way, we need to allow innovation, change the incentive structure, and get rid of the idea that raw capability is more important than efficiency. Look at the problems that we're now facing: a freeze on federal grants, a bird flu epidemic, tariffs. As Ben Thompson puts it, America has a choice. We always have a choice. We could double down on defensive measures in AI. Alternatively, we could realize that we have real competition and actually give ourselves permission to compete. Stop wringing our hands, stop campaigning for regulations. Go the other way and cut out all the cruft in our companies that have nothing to do with winning. The US has a choice: cling to old assumptions or embrace a future defined by efficiency. We need to reward progress over profit. The Cold War isn't between America and China, it's between the US and itself.